Hey, I'm Shane. This is Grayson. We're here, part 2 of a mini-series talking about our thinking. Recognizing a time where there's kind of an assault with fear, worry, anxiety on our thoughts, on our lives, how that impacts our relationships, how we think, and recognizing how to have an appropriate and accurate filter for our thinking is very, very important. If you missed part 1, I encourage you to go back and watch it. If this is helpful to you, share it with someone that you know. But today we're talking, and before we dive into our conversation, we've got to address the elephant in the room, which is, at least right now, elections are just around the corner. And if you've watched any part of the debates or you scroll on your news feed, you can see there's a lot of division, a lot of backbiting, a lot of criticism, slander, and man, it's hard not to be discouraged. And also it just creates a lot of sense of just unknown and uncertainty. Like, what is our country, our culture, our society going to look like kind of when all the dust settles? And that uncertainty and unknown can produce a lot of worry, fear, and anxiety. So how do we address and deal with the unknown, the uncertainty of the future, when there's no way we can fully predict with 100% certainty what tomorrow is going to bring? How do we navigate that unknown?
Yeah, such a good question, Shane. And I love the focus on uncertainty, because there is no guarantee about tomorrow. There's no guarantee an hour from now, technically.
Yeah.
Jesus talks about this guy who stores up riches and wealth in his barns and says, tomorrow I'm going to take it easy. I've done my hard work today. And he says, you fool, tonight your life will be demanded of you. Jesus says it doesn't matter what your plans are. The future is still a big question mark. How do I move forward? And how do I live a life of affection, devotion, passion for Jesus when I don't know what tomorrow is going to look like? That's really hard. Well, we're going to talk about something called Back to the Future today. No DeLoreans, no frizzy hair. It's the biblical concept of the end times. And speaking of the elephant in the room, or maybe to keep it fair, the donkey in the room for this one.
That's good.
Okay.
Equal opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah. End times is something the church has been talking about a lot during this time period. But I want to put it kind of in a biblical concept. In the Old Testament, they started this conversation rolling. This isn't a New Testament revelation thing. This is something that they talked about there, and the actual Hebrew phrase there means the behind days. It doesn't mean end times like we think, and it's clear they're talking about the future. It's not that they're saying, oh, we're talking about the past. We're looking forward, but they call it the behind days, which causes a lot of head scratching.
Yeah, that's weird.
But here's kind of what the community has settled on is, what this means is when I'm approaching the future, instead of it being out there, the future's behind me. My gaze is turned, and I'm looking at the past as I approach the future. So why in the world would that be the focus of this? The reason why is when I look back, I can see all of the amazing things that God has done. I can see the faithfulness in my life. Not that every situation has all these great things happen, like, the future's going to be perfect and no stress and trouble.
There's times of trauma or pain or loss.
Yeah, and that is going to come. God doesn't promise to take that away, but what I can do is I can look back and I can see, I've been here before. I've experienced pain and loss and difficulty and struggle, and every time God has met me right there. He has been with me in that struggle, and he has helped me to overcome it and move forward, and ended up working those things out for my good. So when I approach the uncertainty of the future, what God is calling me to do is to look at the certainty of what has happened. Let me read something real quick from Hebrews chapter 13 for you today that really kind of emphasizes this very simple statement. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. What that means is, if he was good in the past, he is good now. Tomorrow he's going to be good too.
Amen.
Yeah.
That's so good.
So what do we do with that, Shane?
Yeah, that's a good question. Makes me think of just the importance of like altars. If you think about it, it was very common in the Jewish culture where God displayed his character, his power, his authority in a very evident way. And that they would build this altar so that when future generations would walk by and they'd, a child or a grandchild would say, hey, what's that stack of stones there? It's like, well, let me tell you what God did. And they would even name the place. And I think, wow, we don't necessarily go around building altars or stacks of stones in our current culture. I think the practice of remembering is so important. I so quickly forget.
Yeah.
And sometimes I go through seasons of life where I'm really good about the practice of journaling and kind of jotting things down. Other times I'm like, oh, I haven't done that in a long time. And just how quickly I forget. And I see over and over again, God reminding his people, remember who I am, remember what I've done, look back, remember my faithfulness. Like you said, if God was faithful then, he'll be faithful now. And so I think here's the encouragement, the practical takeaway is spend some time, go look back and recount God's faithfulness in your life. Write down some key moments. Have a conversation with a friend. I think doing this in community is so important, and especially if it's someone who you've known for a while, they might be able to help remind you of moments that you've potentially forgotten about, and vice versa. So I think having the discipline and remembering and looking back and say, okay, even in moments of difficulty, I can think in my own life, moments of loss and pain and hardship, I can look back and say, that was hard, it was painful, I wouldn't want to live it again, but God was good, he was present, he revealed himself, he carried me along in the midst of it, so we can look back and see God's faithfulness, his love, his goodness, I believe, in every moment of our lives. So that's the encouragement this week, or in this conversation, is to take this and go and look back and see, where has God been good and faithful in your life? He was faithful then, he'll be faithful now.